Hmm, okay,
We're
so we're
recording?
here together on record, yes, and I'm Laura Jane, and I'm here with my friend, Dr. Brad Miller. Hi, Dr. Brad.
Good morning. We'll take a simultaneous sip of coffee.
Cheers. Your mug looks funny. What does it say? It came up to
Wait,
the camera, so I feel like we should hear what it says, if you're willing.
wait, we were just talking about that, and
Uh-huh.
probably we shouldn't get into it.
Okay, it's a little controversial, humorous thing, I'm assuming. You don't have to share it. It's okay. Whatever you feel.
That's all right. You know what? I will. My daughter gave this to me for Father's Day.
And what does it say?
It's Donald Trump, and I know some people don't like that name. It says, "Nobody is better at fatherhood than you. All the other dads are a total disaster. Everyone agrees, believe me." So that's like Trumpism.
Oh, cute. Yeah, but it's just kind of taking it to a personal statement. And I love that you told me you took that picture that's behind you, that's a photo that you took and captured recently, you said?
Yeah,
recently?
on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of weeks when we had that Noah's flood in the Southland here a couple of weeks ago. I was driving to Arizona.
I love how it like comes into your head too, the way that you just like you're like streaming the rainbow.
But that thing was coming right out of the clouds, and just as vivid as, I don't think the picture probably doesn't do it justice, but it was vivid as any rainbow I've ever seen. People were pulled over on the freeway, which is not a good idea.
Yeah,
taking pictures.
Yeah, that's great.
And a little while after that, there was two of them.
That'll be a nice meditation for us as part of this. And yes, and I love that we've done a couple video things together, I think, and I love hearing from you about health and chiropractic, as that is some of your expertise of many years now.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, but I'm
30
happy
years.
to get on with you. 30 years now you have been in practice?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, so you really have seen the growth of chiropractic. I love that you've helped me and other people understand how there's such a variety to the approaches within chiropractic, right? And so in that sense, you're a very unique practitioner, right? Nobody does it quite like you do. Just like you said, all chiropractors kind of have their own style,
We kind of learn something and then do it the way we are as a human, I think would be one way to look at it. So everybody's going to be different.
Right.
So, the variance there is how much experience and, how many different tools you have to draw from, to help a person.
Yeah. So just being willing to be your own practitioner is part of the art, right? To be your own version of how it's coming through.
Yeah.
I love that you model that and have had a strong practice for so long too, because that's impressive also, just to be in business as a small business owner for 30 years through the ups and downs of economy, right? So yeah, so for multiple reasons, I thought it would be very interesting and probably powerful to get to talk to you at this time during the stay home pandemic coronavirus time of the world. I realize I'd like to say that in these videos because people might watch this months or years from now and not be sure what we're talking about. So I'm realizing I might as well reference what we're talking about.
That's a great idea.
Because I'll put these on YouTube and people may catch this, years from now, but still benefit from it. So yeah, we're at that time, and I thought it would be, awesome to hear from you about some of how it's been for you as a practitioner, as a business person, as a dad, as a scientist-based researcher always, right? And
what I was doing this morning.
Yeah, so yeah, how do you want to share how it's been for you over these last weeks and months?
Here's what one thing I would like people to know is that is chiropractic's effect on the immune system. immune function is big right now, because that's, if you don't have it and you get this coronavirus, if it is what they say, and it looks like it's kind of nasty, you die. And that's why, the people, as far as I know, and again, we're getting a lot of conflicting information, but as far as we see, it's mostly older people and or people who are, have other conditions that affect the immune system.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part of that is that it's assumed that as you get old, your immune system suffers. I don't think we're built that way, but it seems to be the way. It's average as opposed to normal. I talk about that in my office a lot. It's like average for most people to have low back pain, like in their 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever.
Yeah.
And, if it happens to so many people, they start thinking it's normal. To me, normal would be normal. What's normal function? Well,
yeah.
And the pain is just a small part of the function. But it's just abnormal. We're not designed. We're designed to have pain if there's a problem. So if there's not a problem, we're not going to have pain, right?
Yeah. And same thing with illness, maybe too, is it's an indicator of like low immune function sometimes, at least, right?
I have, absolutely. Well, you know that from personal experience.
Right. Well, we all do. And I feel like that's a lot of us, the awareness is growing anyways about an understanding of the immune system and how it works right now. I think for some of us anyways, that again, even if you're exposed to something, it doesn't mean you have to get it, right? And
let's talk about that.
About getting our immunity, keeping our immunity strong so that either we don't actually catch the virus, or if we do catch it, we don't have to develop the symptoms, right? Or if we do develop the symptoms, that we could survive, right? So those would be the ways our immune system could help us right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk. Let's talk about what is. See if this is interesting. Talking about what a symptom means.
Yes. Ooh.
We're kind of trained to think that symptoms are bad. And if you don't have symptoms, everything's fine. We know that's not true, because a lot of people, if you're diagnosed with cancer, the week before you get your diagnosis, you feel okay. We know a lot of people who have, who die of a heart attack and they were fine the day before, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has an Uncle Joe that's, 50 and he works out 3 times a day, but he's also, highly stressed, maybe doesn't eat that well, but he's feeling okay and he's functioning, and then he dies.
Yeah.
So that's being unhealthy.
We can't rely on symptoms to tell us if we're healthy or not, in a sense, either.
Exactly. Symptoms are just a small part of it.
Interesting.
But let's talk about symptoms. So one thing I like to use is, for instance, if you eat a piece of bad meat, which I've done, what happens? Immediately your brain says, "Oh, bad, we need to get rid of it." And if it's done immediately, you just throw it up, right? So we'd say that vomiting is a symptom. Is that good or bad?
Right, it's helping. It's like your body is trying to help you. So a symptom, maybe your body's doing its job to take care of you, in a sense, by throwing up the bad meat.
Yeah, and if it's been delayed, you're going to get diarrhea. Your brain is saying, we need to get this stuff out of our system. And it's a good system. If you didn't have that function, you would be sick. Yeah. Right? But we talk about vomiting from in this case, it's a germ. We talk about vomiting, being sick, and it's not really sick. It's a healthy response. So what happens when we encounter any germ is the brain reads it and says, in effect, what do we need to do with this? Well, we'll get rid of it, and if it's something that you've breathed in, so it's immediately gets red in the mouth, and then it gets red in the throat, and then it may get to the stomach. but your brain and your immune function is identifying that and dealing with it as need be. So what happens if you get if you're shopping at Trader Joe's and somebody sneezes on you, let's call it the coronavirus. If somebody sneezes on you and you breathe in the coronavirus, what does your body do? The brain says, oh, that's bad. Let's start working on it. And if you've got a real robust immune system, it may deal with that and you don't even notice it. So that's where people say, well, I didn't get sick. And
and how does that happen? What happens there when your body deals with it and you didn't have to get it? Like, remind me what's happening there. Is that when those immune cells are going to work?
Mobilizes
T
the
cells, that kind of
T-cells,
thing?
and phagocytes, and it identifies it, and the phagocytes surround the germ, and then they eat it, and then it gets expelled.
Because that's the kind of thing I feel like we need to have in mind. Like, this is what our body knows how to do when we're well. And if we do get exposed to it at Trader Joe's, even to be able to picture how our cells are surrounding that coronavirus and saying, hell no, we won't go, right? And then that's like to know what our body's built to do when it's
right. So here's what happens. So say you get way too many for your immune system to deal with. It can get overwhelmed.
Your immune system is weak, or because you just get exposed to a lot? What do you mean by that?
Here's what it's just hard to do in the normal course of daily life. But say if you use the idea of a parasite, like our body is built to deal with a certain number of parasites if we happen to drink them. Like, remember, we're hunter-gatherers and we're stopping in the stream and somebody pooped upstream that had parasites. So we can handle, say, 1,000 of those. But if you, and we can get rid of them, we'd never know that we encountered them. But if you get 8 billion of those, it may overwhelm the system. So then you have to, you kick into second gear. So it's possible to get too many for a person to deal with, but it's not probable in normal life.
Too many of one virus, or a variety of viruses. Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, certainly there's an idea of a load where if you can get too much of anything, and then it can overwhelm the system.
But that's where it makes sense to limit our exposure to the coronavirus, for instance, maybe if it is a nasty one, but also knowing if we do get exposed, if we're well, our body is built to handle it, or it can, right?
Yeah. So here's what happens after. So say if the body does not have a robust immune function.
Yeah, right.
So those things come into the system, the initial process doesn't work. Then you create secondary responses. And that's where you may get a fever. If it's a respiratory, you're going to start having snot, right? To flush it out of the nasal passage.
Yes.
If
but those are still your body trying to help, right? The fever is your body trying to fight the cold or the virus. The nasal. So if you're showing us the symptoms aren't the problem, they're the response to So it's still the body trying to do its job.
Yeah, when we have a cold, it's a virus in our system that when we say we have a cold, sorry, I'm even guilty of thinking that if you don't have the symptoms, you don't have the cold, but we encounter that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it overwhelms. So when you get a fever and sinus issues and whatnot, that's a normal process where your body says, well, it's too much for us to handle, so we need to kick in these secondary things. And usually that's enough to take care of business. If your system is really weak, it takes you a week to do that, say with a typical flu. If it's strong and you've had to kick in those systems, it may take you a day. And I saw that with my daughter, I see that with my patients. I saw that with my daughter. Typically, my daughter, when she was growing up, might get she'd get sick for half a day. She'd get this big fever and just, get low key. And I go, okay. But she'd been adjusted. I adjusted her the first hour. She had a good functioning nervous system. Her diet was really good. We took a few different supplements. Obviously, as you know, kids, they exercise, or at least they used to. So she did as much as she could, using my daughter as an example, to be healthy. So she would she rarely got sick. When she did, you almost didn't notice it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, this could be a good time to segment, and I want to make sure we give you a chance to talk about what you mentioned before we got on the video, because knowing that chiropractic, one of its biggest effects is how it helps immunity. You mentioned that something about when during the Spanish flu was when chiropractic really got on the map because of how well it works for this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's when people started noticing that, if you get adjusted, you don't get sick, and if you don't, you tend to. So in 1918, and I've got, if I look aside as I'm reading the stats, the big clinic in the country was in Davenport, Iowa, where B.J. Palmer. It was a Palmer clinic in Davenport, Iowa. It's kind of where chiropractic began in 1895.
Wow.
So they did stats, and in Davenport, when the Spanish flu, or the 1918 influenza epidemic, the researchers in Davenport, MDs still had a lock on more of the population, but and these are stats: 93,590 patients treated by medical doctors. There were 6,116 deaths. So 1 out of 15 died if you went to the MD, and there, whatever reasons it were, that's what happened. Chiropractors saw, and they only saw 1,635, and had 1 death. So it's, outside of Davenport, there's, in Iowa, say there's 4,735 cases, 6 deaths. So 1 out of 866 people died, versus 1 out of 15. So if you went to the chiropractor, you tended to not die. And if you went to the MD, you had a bigger chance of dying. I've read reports of people, people were hopping trains to come into Davenport. Like, where are you headed? We're going to Davenport, see the chiropractor.
Wow. So word got out that this works, and that's when really people started to learn about and know about chiropractic, was during that epidemic, you're saying?
Well, it was going pretty strong before that, but that kind of changed the view of, the first chiropractic adjustment was done to restore a guy's hearing.
Oh, wow.
You didn't hear that? Should I tell that story? Yeah.
Sure.
D.D. Palmer, who had done some different healing techniques, had been studying the nerve system for about a decade, and finally was at his office one night, and there was a deaf or partially deaf janitor, Harvey Lillard, and D.D. Palmer decided to experiment on him because Lillard, through sign language or writing, however they communicated, noted that he had fallen down the stairs like 20 years before, and ever since he was deaf.
Oh.
And Dee palpated up in his upper neck and felt what he knew was a vertebra that seemed out of place, and he wailed on it, and Harvey got up and could hear, and then Dee said, "Well, I've got the cure to deafness." And so he got his buddies to go try to find deaf people, and he adjusted them, and then they started finding other people, and basically it's lame, and whoever was lame and decrepit in Davenport, Iowa, and he started getting people better, and then people said, "Yeah, go see that Palmer guy." And, you know, so within 20 years, they knew it helped a whole bunch of stuff, but the idea of it helping the immune system was still probably developing.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's still news to a lot of us, that even nowadays, most people have heard about a chiropractor if we think we know what chiropractors do, but the fact that it helps immunity so much, I think, is still news to a lot of people.
You know, that's probably the most important thing right now, but to me, and we can talk about this maybe another time, brain function is even a bigger thing.
That chiropractic helps with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, so yeah, and there's a fair amount of research on, you get adjusted and the T cells go up, you know, 200%, and phagocytes, the things that eat the bad germs, you know, they increase their action, you know, after a single chiropractic adjustment. But you know, I wouldn't, because what we do, and this, we have a different view. We call it or other people call it alignment. I don't call what we do, you know, alignment necessarily. What we look for, we deal with the spine because it houses the nerve system. If it didn't house the nerve system, which is the brain, spinal cord, and spinal nerves that go out to all your body, if it didn't house the nerve system, the spine would not be of interest, in my opinion. It would be as you know, as much as the arm bone. But the delicate nerve system is in there, so is in between each vertebra. And if the vertebra gets, we call it misaligned, but it's easy just dysfunctional. It interferes with that brain's connection to the body. So when we adjust, we're looking for those things. That's called a subluxation. And the idea is to release interference to the nerve system. So we're not really giving a person anything. We're removing interference to the nerve system so that the body can function at a higher level, closer closer to normal than it was before the adjustments.
Yeah. Okay.
Simple as that. And, you know, brain function is, you know, input to the brain is important. Well, is everything. So we get input from our nerve system, right? Visual, touch, see, you know, it's all, the input goes to the brain, and then the brain deals with it, and then we do things. That can be interfered with. You know, the nerve information going up to the brain is important, you know, so the brain can know what to do as the information from the brain to the body.
Interesting.
So that's what we do. So when you talk about, yogis talk about alignment, you know, because chiropractors might use that term too, we're talking about totally different things, in my opinion. And I know this, because I have yoga instructors as patients. They can get subluxated while still being able to do all their poses and whatnot. So they're complementary practices, definitely. I tell people every day, you should try yoga. You know. But unfortunately, I've heard people tell me their yoga instructor tells them if they do yoga, they don't need to go to the chiropractor because we're doing the same thing, and that's just false. Again, yoga is great stuff. Chiropractic is great stuff. You know, what I suggest with my patients, I'm going off on another rant, but I'll go ahead and say this. I've had, you know, many patients come to me and they say, Dr. Brad, you know, I tried another chiropractor, I tried acupuncture, I tried massage, I tried yoga, I went to physical therapy, I've tried drug therapy, nothing works. Can you help me? And I was like, I'd say, you know, probably, because that's been my experience, but let's do all those things. You know, there's something human about trying to find one cause for everything, and most of the time there's multi-factors. Right?
So to have a more integrative approach is just more practical to not just rely on one system or way, even though we might find just some ways, but to allow for it to be integrated. That makes sense.
And most of my patients do as much as they can for themselves, right? They come in and get adjusted regularly, you know, and exercise, and you know, most people do their best to eat well. You know, it's not easy in our society. I mean, it's not, when I say not easy, it's just sometimes it takes a little more work than, you know, stopping by Whataburger on the way home, right? You know, and then, you there?
There we are. Yeah.
I'm running low on battery. That's the other reason I wanted to
oh yeah. Well, actually, I guess we already getting toward, if we could go like another 5 or 10 minutes, if that works for you and your phone.
Have I been talking that long? My goodness.
Isn't that funny how that goes quick? Well, I mean, yeah, we have another, it's almost 10:50, so we got another at least 5 or 10 minutes if your phone can do it, or even like 15 minutes.
It says 20%. I have no idea how long that would take. I'll plug in if I have to, and I'll just hold it. Let's talk about what I recommend people do right now, especially if they're concerned about getting sick.
Sure, please.
One, you need a good functioning nervous system without interference. If you think you're doing well without it, you're taking your chances, in my opinion. You need to do some sort of physical exercise. And, you know, I know you're a yoga instructor, so I don't know whether to put that into physical or spiritual.
Both. That's where we say it's holistic, mind, body, soul, right?
And it probably depends the same way, you know, what chiropractor you go to. It depends on the yoga instructor. You know, some of them, there may be no spiritual aspect to it other than doing the asanas. You know, so however you want to put that, whatever category is fine. But then you need to eat well. Supplementation, a lot of people have been talking about, and I'm going to talk briefly about vitamin C because it's one of the things I recommend. Do you take vitamin C?
I've just been doing some like the vitamin C packets and such lately.
Yeah, so like the emergency.
I haven't been that into supplements lately. So yeah, tell us what you like to say about vitamin C and
I'm not a major supplement guy. I think there's probably some basics we should be taking. You know, in a normal course, if you're not you know, you need enough omega-3s in your diet. So if you're not eating, like I eat a lot of pastured beef. I buy my meat at the farmer's market, buy bar beef. But that's because it's got a lot of, you know, good beef has high omega-3s like fish does, and I just like meat. But anyway, so omega-3s, probiotics, a general supplement most of us should be taking. And I like vitamin C, especially if there's any challenges. You don't need it if you're not under stress or you're not being attacked by something. If you are, most people are pretty low on vitamin C, I think. And there's a great 2-hour video I was looking at this morning by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. She's a medical doctor, kidney specialist. If you want to learn about vitamin C, I highly recommend go to her site. It's drsuzanne.net. I don't get any referral fees. She's got 2-hour lecture on vitamin C. So if you think you knew about vitamin C, look at her stuff, and it's pretty good. One of the things she notes in there, and this is what I have seen in my practice, there was this interesting study in Bangladesh on patients who had tetanus. So they had, let's say, 120 people who were diagnosed with tetanus. And they decided to see if vitamin C would help these folks. So they took half of them and didn't do anything. And I have it on my other computer. I think 67% of them died. They took the other half of the group and they gave them all vitamin C. Now this group was from infants to 50-year-old people. So they gave them vitamin C. And overall, the people who got vitamin C, I think 37%, don't quote me on the stats, but that's enough to get a good idea. 37% died. The children under 12, 0% died, and the people who died were the adults. Dr. Humphreys noted, and I think it's valid, the difference there is they gave everybody the same dose. So what's likely is that the children got enough of a dose and the adults didn't, because they were not counting for, you know, how big a person was. And I've seen that in my practice. You know, just a story. I had a couple come in who were both kind of coming down with the flu, so they got adjusted because they knew that's what they should do. And I said, I suggested they take vitamin C, and they said, that's a great idea. They ordered it while, you know, one of them ordered it online while they were getting adjusted. And I saw them the following week, and they said, yeah, it worked for her. It didn't work for me. And I said, how much did you take? And this is before I knew to also take that second step with my patients. And they said, well, the recommended dose, and you know, on the canister. And I think what probably, you know, if it was going to help, and you know, there are a lot of factors, but I think it does help with immune function. The one of them got what they needed, and the other one didn't. So when they say it didn't work for me, it could be because they didn't get enough. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of different types. The problem with the cheaper vitamin C's is they tend to be GMO, and they tend to be kind of a crappy source. They also tend to be ascorbic acid. The one at there's a couple different. Sorry, I got a call. Yeah, there's some different sources of vitamin C. The one I like is called sodium ascorbate. Sodium ascorbate has a hydrogen attached to it, and you need, actually, that's how you can utilize the ascorbate. So that needs to happen whether you take it as a ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate. But the sodium ascorbate is not acidic. It's really easy to take. It's really easy to give infants. You know, it's like when I put it in my water, it's like soft water.
Okay. Yeah.
You can get liposomal C, which I haven't found one that I like. Supposedly it works better. I don't know. It's much more expensive, and I don't like it, so I don't take it. I take the sodium ascorbate. And there's a couple. There's different kinds. I would recommend, you know, and it's even cheap. There's 16 ounces at Mother's it's like $15, 13 or $15. I don't sell it here because Mother's can sell it a whole lot cheaper than I can. And here's the thing that people need to know about vitamin C. You need to know what level you need, because it's all individual. So when you see, well, all you need is 240 milligrams a day or whatever, you know, that's kind of to prevent scurvy, and it's not taking into account the fact that we're all individuals. We have individual needs. We have a, you know, wherever we are in a particular point of time has had a whole lifetime of getting there, and so we're all different.
Right.
So have you heard all that? Have you heard that before?
It makes sense to really realize that. And so how do people know how much? Is it just through experimentation to find out how much they uniquely need?
I'm going to tell you. Yeah. Using the technique that I use, I can assess dosage for people if they're here in the office. But the other way to do it, you know, so one of the things about vitamin C is if you take too much, it'll give you diarrhea. So what you want to do is find out at what point you get the diarrhea, and then take 80% of it. So my recommendations for people to find out their zone on that is, and it's easy to do if you're at home. You know, it used to be hard for people because they said, well, you know, so take like a gram an hour, and once you feel your stomach rumbling, you've met your limit, or you get diarrhea, whatever. So that whether that's 4 grams or 8 grams or 12 grams or whatever, you find your limit, start taking 80-90% of that, and it'll probably change over time. So then you just need to listen to your body.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Everybody should at least be doing that.
Okay.
If you're taking vitamin C, and taking a packet of cheap C that's fizzy, a lot of my patients do that. I don't.
Right.
I've done it. I used to have boxes of that stuff at home, and if you're going to do it, you should probably do it as best as you can.
Go ahead and get that other supplement. Okay. Cool.
Especially if, at this time, if there's the potential for a particularly vicious virus to get you, you want all the protection you can have.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
So, yeah. And, and vitamin C is good for the cardiovascular system. It's good for, most people don't think about it, but it helps. It's needed for collagen production, which is skin, wound repair, bones, cardiovascular system. It's good for a lot more than even the immune system. So it's one of the things that I take regularly, that I think is a good idea to take regularly forever.
Okay. That's great to know. Yeah.
But in particular, right now, it's probably really important to do. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
How was that? Was that useful?
Helpful, for sure.
I hope so.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, I guess we are getting towards our time here. And I'm so thankful, though, that we've gotten.
Oh, I'm losing audio.
Tell us how people can find you if they want to follow you, whether they're in town or across the country.
Yeah, I can, there's some things we can do online, especially dosing for supplements. That's easy, because I use applied kinesiology, and we can do that over the phone or, FaceTime, whatever.
Okay.
My website's fine, ocfamilywellness.com.
Okay.
ocfamilywellness.com. Google me, Dr. Brad Miller, chiropractor. Anything else I should give? I don't know.
Great. And then I'll put this on Facebook and YouTube. So on Facebook, maybe they can also follow you on Facebook if you.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. My OC Family Wellness is Facebook, and personally, I'm on there too, Brad Miller.
Okay, great. Yeah. So anything else you want to say to people at the end here?
Yeah, I feel like I should interview you one time, because you just let me talk for half an hour. I have no idea how I did that.
That's what this is about to me. I said that's what this is about to me, that I want to hear from you. So, but yeah, we could do that more.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you, LJ. And yeah, let's do one on you and the benefits of yoga, how it helps you. You've probably done that, but yeah. All right.
Well, yes. Well, thank you, and thank you to whoever's with us and taking this in after the fact. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of the day there, Dr. Brad. Your phone's just about done with us.
I've got 10% left.
All right.
Love you, LJ. Stay healthy.
Love you too.
And hope to see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Dr. Brad.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.